bred creativity in me because I decided to film on these angles. They contribute to my choreographed dance this week, and that's how it's gonna be. So what I'll do is I'll start with one pass and then explain the dance a little more after that. That was my first choreographed robot dance that mixed in some different hip-hop styles together. Tutting, bone breaking, whacking, finger tutting. So I hope that turns out because that choreography, I decided to have a little bit more leeway with the musicality. Every time I've done it slightly differently. So I'll again practice 3 times as I normally do, but with the knowledge that each time will be quite different than the next, as opposed to the last choreographies where I tried to keep everything consistent. Am I gonna wear these glasses the entire time? Sure. These are cool. The reason why I have to add an extra layer on top is because I wear transition lenses, which are helpful to eye health and probably the best you can buy for eye health. But for performance purposes, I need the darker shade. So, in my dancing progression, I've actually danced many different styles, and while I keep calling this breaking badass, I've honestly attempted, and I think succeeded, in many different styles. Botting is my favorite to freestyle because it just comes naturally. All of the other dance styles I've had to work more on. Breakdancing in particular. Breakdancing is the best total body workout I've ever done in my life. And breakdancing is actually very intense on all parts of the body. I know that I've concentrated a lot more on top rocking, which is the up stand-up dancing, but that's because I've been working really hard to train my upper body for the eventual dancing that requires a lot more of my upper body strength. I've shown elements, but I've yet to really combine it into a cohesive dance that you could, let's say, battle in a breakdance battle. As 2020 winds down, I'm in the difficult position of thinking long term. How does one think long term during a global pandemic? See? Even me just thinking out loud is causing problems. Imagine thinking for long term in times where life is completely different from what we used to have. My lifestyle in particular concentrated a lot on adventure traveling. The activity of adventure traveling, at least for me, is very dependent on ease of entering and exiting borders. I know that some people travel with harder passports than mine, and they've made it work. As someone who's been to 101 countries, I'll have to assess whether the added difficulty is worth it for now, or do I wait until things return to semi-normal? But then the question begs, what's normalcy? Because even if your country of origin, home country, have largely defeated or controlled the pandemic, the parts of the world that you want to travel to are all in their own phases of lockdown. And one thing that's concerning as an adventure traveler is that lockdown seems to be something, at least during the pandemic age that they justify doing like that. Before, at least during the 7 years that I've done it, I'd never seen a situation where countries so quickly just did what they did. Now the question is, how do I feel about that additional level of risk? As an adventure traveler, especially to the countries that I travel to, I'm already taking on a lot more risk than the average person would. And that's fine. I've assessed that, and that's reasonable to me. The problem is that now we overlay the additional pandemic risk, and at least the government of Canada has still kept its ongoing warning against non-essential travel. So that essentially means adventure travel and all other forms of tourism. So what do we do? The obvious thing would be that instead of forcing myself to have a long-term plan for that, adventure traveling, I can start to focus more on my dance goals. Maybe too, the label of long-term, medium-term, short-term is the stressful part, because I've usually been the type to dream it, do it. So if I dream it, do it, I'll have usually what I call wild dreams that I pare down to reasonable dreams. But again, I'm just like most other people who are trying to rebuild their lives in this new world. I remind myself that I'm lucky to do all that I've done before when things were easy, because I have a lot less that sense of regret. Some people I know are drowning in negativity because they thought they'd have a plan to do things, to put ducks in rows, and what can I say about that? I've rewatched some of my old pre-pandemic travel talks, and I think whatever I express to my audiences, I still think. The reason why you do now over later is because exactly what's happened in the world. You've no idea what will happen, so you should do now. How do we do that during a pandemic, though? What's considered doing now? Dancing is doing now. I think one final thought to wrap things up before my second pass. I would have actually eventually taken time to dance. That might seem like a sentiment that I'm telling myself to justify all the time I've spent dancing, but the dancing has been really fun, and looking back, something that I had been building towards but never had the opportunity to express. This pandemic has been the perfect opportunity to express it, because it's exactly the type of activity that meets all the check marks. I'm away from people, but outside. I've mentioned before that I'm away from people a lot less because I'm concerned about the disease itself, but more because the interactions with people have been strained regardless. So I'm trying to keep my contacts to a minimum, because I know that everyone, including me, we all are dealing with some shit, and we're, as much as we're trying to, not really in the best frame of mind. So instead of having a ton of shitty interactions with people, why do that? How about wait until hopefully things are better? Now, how has that been for my mental health? I think it's been largely okay, because I've still kept in touch with a select few number of people who I know won't freak out over everything, who I know are rational thinkers. But that's the train of thought for now. Dance again. I name drop a number of luminaries on my vlog because people much smarter than me have many better methods of dealing with this pandemic than I do. I have something that's worked because I'm doing something that I would have done in my life anyways, just maybe in a different time order than I would have necessarily planned for myself. But that's the beauty of creativity and working within constraints, because I might have continued adventure traveling and doing other extreme sports like scuba diving, skydiving, until I lacked the physicality to do those things. By that time, I'd also, by definition, lack the physicality to dance as well. At least the more involved, demanding dance of breakdancing. So, in many ways, I'm happy for this opportunity. And what I'm trying to decide for myself is, instead of trying to focus on what I've lost, which is adventure traveling, can I focus on higher, loftier goals for my dancing? So, some people have asked me how I can have such dedication to something that lacks a specific goal. My answer is that just moving my body is fun. I'm very Joe Rogan that way. Because, like Joe Rogan, I'm actually a martial artist. I rarely talk about it because Joe was a black belt and a national level taekwondo athlete, whereas I'm just an intermediate martial artist. But one thing I know for myself, and I had to rediscover later in life, after an entire period of physical back pain and mental pain, is that moving my body is the key, really. It is. And of course there are funner ways to move your body. So when I was rehabilitating that said back pain and back injury, I started with yoga. And I picked up yoga really quickly because I am actually hypermobile or double jointed, as you might have noticed in my dancing. That's why I'll always do yoga to stretch out my entire body, because that helped me rehab. So when gym owners try to convince me to exercise, they've noticed that they hardly had to do that because I do it on my own. But they falsely attribute the narrative to me wanting to look good. Nah. When you've struggled with decrepit, debilitating pain, you'll fucking do anything to avoid that. So I know my medicine, so to speak, is exercise. That's why I'm so dedicated. Now, the only difference during this pandemic has been I've, again, had a functional goal to move my body, but I can manifest it in fun ways and in ways that I've never done before. So I've always been a good dancer. I randomly throw on a tune and I can throw down however I feel like it and look pretty decent, if I say so myself. But I never dedicated to learning. And this is what I've done during the pandemic. I've actually learned how to do a lot of what I admired afar while watching shows like America's Best Dance Crew and World of Dance. So in many ways, this vlog is me trying to solidify some actual dance goals. What dance goals do I have? My goals are still very general. My goal, the only one that I can think of, is to be the best dancer that I can possibly be. Last year, I presented a travel talk about how to be SMART with your goals, which is an acronym. SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. I'm countering my own advice, but that's because I've yet to really understand what I'm doing here. It's been one big creative flow, and the creative flow has been exactly as it should be. I'll leave it at that. I have one more pass, and then I'm done. I'll leave it at that.